ecstasy of union and separation, which Gaudiya Vaishnava scholars declare to be superior even to the ecstasy the gopis felt in Krishna's presence. Because Krishna is absolute, even remembering him or chanting his name puts the devotee into direct contact with him, but because there is simultaneously a feeling of separation from him, there is an added dimension of inconceivable simultaneous union and separation. This is the epitome of Krishna conscious realization. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 4, entitled Hiranyakashipu Terrorizes the Universe. Text 15, 16, and 17. Okay, I'll do the first couple. Sa eva varna shrami bi kratubir buri dakshinai hijyamano havir bagan agrahit swena tejasa, being worshipped by sacrifices offered with great gifts by those who strictly followed the principles of Varna and Ashram. Hiranyakashipu, instead of offering shares of the oblations to the demigods, accepted them himself. Pachya tasya sit sapta dvi pavati mahi tata kama dugagavo nanascharya padam naba. As if in fear of Hiranyakashipu, the planet Earth, which consists of 7 islands, delivered food grains without being ploughed. Thus it resembled cows like the Surabhi of the spiritual world or the Kamaduga of heaven. The earth yielded sufficient food grains, the cows supplied abundant milk, and outer space was beautifully decorated with wonderful phenomena. So we can do this one together. Ratnakarash, Cha, Ratnogams, Ratnakaras, Cha, Ratnogams, Tatpatnyas, Chohur, Urmibi, Tatpatnyas, Chohur, Urmibi, Kshara, Sidhu, Grita, Kshodra, Kshara, Sidhu, Grita, Kshodra, Dadi, Kshiram, Ritodaka, Dadi, Kshiram, Ritodaka, Ratnakaras, Charatnogams, Tatpatnyas, Chohur, Urmibi, Kshara, Sidhu, Grita, Kshodra, Dadi, Kshiram, Ritodaka, Ratnakaras, Charatnogams, Tatpatnyas, Chohur, Urmibi, Kshara, Sidhu, Grita, Kshodra, Dadi, Kshiram, Ritodaka, Ratnakaras, Charatnogams, Tatpatnyas, Chohur, Urmibi, Kshara, Sidhu, Grita, Kshodra, Dadi, Kshiram, Ritodaka. Please chant. Ratnakara, seas and oceans, Cha and Radna Ogan, various kinds of gems and valuable stones. Tatpatnya, the wives of the oceans and seas, namely the rivers. Cha, also, Uhu, carried, there may be, by their waves. Chara, the salt ocean. Sidhu, the ocean of wine. Grita, the ocean of clarified butter. Shodra, the ocean of sugarcane juice. Dadi, the ocean of yogurt. Kshira, the ocean of milk. Amrita, and the very sweet ocean. Udaka, water. Translation: by the flowing of their waves, the various oceans of the universe, along with their tributaries, the rivers, which are compared to their wives, supplied various kinds of gems and jewels for Hiranyakashipu's use. These oceans were the oceans of salt water, sugarcane juice, wine, clarified butter, milk, yogurt, and sweet water. Please repeat. By the flowing of their waves, the various oceans of the universe, along with their tributaries, the rivers, which are compared to their wives, supplied various kinds of gems and jewels for Hiranyakashipu's use. These oceans were the oceans of salt water, sugarcane juice, wine, clarified butter, milk, yogurt, and sweet water. Prabhupada's purport. The water of the seas and oceans of this planet, of which we have experience, are salty, but other planets within the universe contain oceans of sugarcane juice, liquor, ghee, milk, and sweet water. The rivers are figuratively described as wives of the oceans and seas because they glide down to the oceans and seas as tributaries. Like the wives attached to their husbands, modern scientists attempt excursions to other planets, but they have no information of how many different types of oceans and seas there are within the universe. According to their experience, the moon is full of dust, but this does not explain how it gives us soothing rays from a distance of millions of miles. As far as we are concerned, we follow the authority of Vyasadeva and Shukadeva Goswami, who have described the universal situation according to the literature. These authorities differ from modern scientists who conclude from their imperfect sensual experience that only this planet is inhabited by living beings, whereas the other planets are all vacant or full of dust. Om Ganantamarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshunlitam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Lagate Garamyat Kripatamam Bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we have just a verse again. By the flowing of their waves, the various oceans of the universe, along with their tributaries, the rivers, which are compared to their wives, supplied various kinds of gems and jewels for Hiranyakashipu's use. These oceans were the oceans of salt water, sugarcane juice, wine, clarified butter, milk, yogurt, and sweet water. So I was noticing, I was being reminded of Srila Prabhupada's pronunciation. A couple of words here. There's the word Kshara, Kshodra, and Kshiramritodaka. And Prabhupada, when he pronounced like this, he would actually, the S was silent. Like he'd say Katriya for Kshatriya. And we hear different pronunciations. That's when the Kasatriyas, Kshatriyas, Kshatriyas. Prabhupada's pronunciation was, I don't know if it's a Bengali thing, but Katriya. And you see also here it says like Kshiramrita, but we call sweet rice kheer. That's coming from that, isn't it? So this would be kind of evidence of that pronunciation. The S is silent. But there was when I stayed at Chaitanya College, there was a devotee there who was quite scholarly. Don't know where he is now. And he was saying that some of the Sanskrit words, it's optional, like at the end of, sometimes at the end of a line, you may have a vowel followed by an H. So it could be A, H, and some people pronounce aha, ihi, like that. But that's optional. It's not that, okay, we have to pronounce it with the aha at the end of it. It can just be ah. So I was understood it was an optional thing.
I was told that we would pronounce it because if we're not reading it, it lets people know that we're at the end of the line. So that's why we would pronounce it. If we weren't reading, we were just hearing it, then the aha at the end would mean that we are at the end of the line.
Okay. So
So it is optional, but it helps someone who's not literate.
Okay. So if you weren't reading it, if somebody was just hearing it, if somebody hearing you speak, is that what you mean? So the word.
Basically, we see 4 lines of Sanskrit, but it's basically 2 lines of Sanskrit.
Right.
First and second line. So that's why we don't say when it's at the end of the first and the third line, we would say at the end of the second and fourth line.
Yeah, so in this verse here also, it's at the end of the second and fourth line, Urmibihi, and Kiramritodakaha.
According to the view.
Right, okay.
Specifically asked him about it.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to some devotees say it, some devotees don't. And he explained to me why we do say it that way.
Yeah. Okay, well, you learn something every day. And I was also just being reminded that not far from here, there's a place called One Lock Head, or as the Scottish call it, One Lock Head, because your head is your head. And there, it's the highest village in Scotland. Sometimes in the winter time, the devotees go down there for a bit of recreation, sometimes in the summer as well. But people, one time I was down there and I seen somebody lying face down in the river, and I thought, what's that? And I realised the guy had a wetsuit and a snorkel on, and he was looking for gold in the river. There used to be, back in the days of, which would be in the early 19th century, the California gold rush. And there was a gold rush here also in South Lanarkshire. Yeah. And also north-east of Scotland. It was a very short gold rush. But still, they have these annual gold panning competitions in One Lock Head, where people go looking for gold and they find it, maybe in small amounts. But just showing you here in this verse, the rivers were supplying various kinds of gems and jewels. So people were finding in the rivers, they were getting washed down from the mountains or coming out from the rocks or whatever, coming out of the earth, and they would become manifest in the rivers. And we're seeing still some examples of that. But because people aren't performing sacrifices because they don't know what should be done and what shouldn't be done, then they're just compared to, like in Kali Yuga, everyone's compared to a thief where they just take, they don't acknowledge that there's someone who's supplying everything. So they want to grab as much as they can. The human race, the race to see who can get the most stuff before they pop their clogs, before they pass away. And so they have places like Fort Knox, where they gather so much gold and whatever else they just. Even if they just print some money anyway, and they give it a name. They call it quantitative easing. So it basically means cheating, that we don't have the wealth to back it up, but we're printing it anyway because we need to, because this inflation system isn't working, so we have to print some more money. It's a bit like this punctuated equilibrium, another cheating, that they don't find the missing link that they've been looking for. They haven't found it. They've been looking for the last couple of 100 years, so they find a term to fill that gap. Rather than saying, actually, the evidence doesn't fit, we say, no, we have to find a name because it must fit. So it's very interesting because they criticize blind followers of theism, but they're blind followers of atheism themselves. They're actually just the type of people they're criticizing. And it makes you wonder, maybe they were blind theists in their last life. So this kind of blind following is not recommended. And we have a choice. We can either accept that life comes from life or life comes from matter. And as Srila Prabhupada correctly points out in that book, Life Comes from Life, these conversations with Swarup Damodar Goswami, then that in our experience, we always see that life comes from life. We came from our mother and father, they came from their mother and father. All the various other species of life are coming from a mother and father, unless it's self-replicating, but it wasn't a dead self-replicating cell. So life is coming from life. There's no example of life coming from matter. And Prabhupada gives a nice example, just like the scorpion comes out of the rice, and one may foolishly think that the scorpion is born from the rice, but the scorpion's eggs are already laid in the rice, and then they hatch, and then they come out. So similarly, one may think that life is just emerging from dull matter, from this universe, but it's not the case. The Lord has cast his glance over this material world, and that glance is impregnating the living entities into the material world. It's interesting. I had the great fortune of living with one scientist devotee, Sadhuputta, some years ago, and many fascinating conversations. Fascinating from his point of view. I was just listening. Or fascinating from my point of view. He was doing the fascinating talking, and he was saying that actually the description of the cosmos, according to the Vedic version, scientists have begun to see that this actually fits in because there is actually a southern and northern hemisphere. There's a bottom and a top. It's not just we're all kind of floating around in space, and because we're on the top of the planet, we think it's the top of the planet. But if everything was upside down, then, we'd be at the bottom. Now, there is actually, and he says that there are actually more stars in the upper hemisphere than there are in the lower hemisphere. And this is confirmed in the Vedic version of things. And the theory of the expanding universe ties in with the breathing out of Mahavishnu, which was there thousands of years ago. Devotees understood this. So gradually, his point is that the various things which they're starting to discover, such as a few hundred years ago when Darwin was looking through his telescope, what would he see? With his limited eyes, limited knowledge, and limited telescope, he would see what a cell looked like. Now when you look at it, you see that a cell is composed of many interdependent parts, and there's no possibility of it evolving because it needs all those parts. It's like saying a car engine would evolve, but you have to have all the parts for it to work. If you take one part out of it, it's not going to work. So it's not that you can just have a piston and then somehow or another a cylinder head, a spark plug, fuel, manifold, exhaust. It's not just going to happen. What would be the cause of that? What would be the need? So therefore, the term intelligent design comes out of that understanding that those who are honest will see that, yeah, there must be some intelligence behind this. For those who want to deny God, then they will always find, and this is what we see here also, is that Krishna says, I make the faith steady. So whatever that faith of that person is, whether it's an atheist or a theist, the Lord will make that faith steady. It's up to us what we want. Do we want faith in the Lord? He'll make that steady. If we want to believe God doesn't exist, just like when, what was his name again, who shot Krishna in the foot? It wasn't McGrary. It was, do you remember? 12th canto. Yeah, it'll come to us in a yes, so it'll come to us in a minute. So he shot Krishna in the foot, and if you get shot in the foot with an arrow, you don't die. It's probably one of the safest places to get shot. But apparently Krishna died, and the reason was to leave a body behind for those atheists who want to consider Krishna as an ordinary person. Then, okay, that's what you want, then here, this will fulfill your desire. Huh? Jara? Was it Jara? Is that right? I don't think it was. Who shot Krishna in the foot with the arrow? From the 12th canto? All right, must be, if that's what it says. I don't know where that's from. So Krishna will make the faith strong, anyone, according to what they want. Swarup Damodar Maharaj was asking Prabhupada, why is it that there's attraction between the male and the female? And of course, nowadays it's more common that there's attraction between even the same species or same sexes. So whatever it is, why is that attraction? Because the bodies are composed of the same elements. So why would one be attracted to another? Which is because the living entity wants it. So because we want that attraction, then it's there. We want to enjoy separately from Krishna. So then Krishna allows that to happen. Not that he approves of it, but he allows it. So we have the choice of which authority do we want to accept. So if you have to make a choice between which authority you want to accept, then you look and see what is the character. So if you see the character of the scientists, not saying all scientists, because even there may be some devotee scientists, but those who are propagating atheism, what is the character? What is the results? They don't consider that life starts at the beginning of conception, so they have no conscience about killing the child in the womb. The child is already alive, it's growing, it's showing the symptoms of life. But because they term it as simply just some kind of cyst, just like removing a cyst, they say, then people think, oh, okay, that's fine, it's no problem, it's just an inconvenience, let's terminate it. So things like that. Mechanized slaughterhouses where thousands upon thousands of animals every day on the planet are being terminated. And then they have this population myth. Now recently there was some kind of survey that showed that if the world was cultivated like India is cultivated for growing food, etc., and you could feed the world 10 times over, probably more than 10 times. I think it was something like 20 times or something. And we see that even in this country, you can be driving by fields and fields, and they're not getting used for anything. But somehow there's this myth which is propagated that there's an overpopulation, so we're going to have to start farming insects as a source of protein. And they're trying to get people used to this idea of having insect powders like a protein shake. So this is just proof that we're in Kali Yuga. The more we see these things becoming acceptable, then the more we see Kali Yuga is advancing. So as Kali Yuga advances, then Dharma recedes. Shi Kodanitai Mapishashiki Jai. Now we have only experience here, as Srila Prabhupada points out, of oceans and seas made of salt water. So on this planet, in this environment, then the salt water is there to preserve the salt. That is God's arrangement. Just imagine if it wasn't there. You take one thing out of the whole equation of survival and we can't survive. So just imagine that, okay, you've got water, plenty of it, but there's no salt. Then what's going to happen? It's not going. And if you're not got the moon there to create the waves and the tide, then the water's going to go off. So it's Krishna's arrangement. When we talk about nature, Prabhupada would say, whose nature? It's not just like some, there's order there. So where does the order come from? There's laws of, there's scientific laws. Who's the lawmaker? We don't have a law without a lawmaker, even in human society, which is just a very kind of insignificant blip in the whole cosmic manifestation. Then laws are there to try to govern things, and they're made by people who sat down and discussed it. The people who made those laws, people who uphold the laws. So when there's laws which are set in motion, then we must see there must be a lawmaker. And the laws of nature is you can't actually conquer over them. So this is another proof that when Prabhupada gives the purport to the Mahamantra, that living entity trying to lord over material nature becomes entangled in her complexities. And the more we try to lord over material nature, the more we become entangled. Until we're so restricted that we cry out to the Lord. We're so frustrated. We tried it all. And Prabhupada says, when we're materially exhausted, then we turn to the Lord. So we might come and say, well, I'm not materially exhausted. I should go back out and enjoy again until I'm materially exhausted. But no amount of putting gasoline on the fire will put the fire out. So we have that knowledge. Take advantage of the knowledge. If we have to go and enjoy everything, then where does it end? And what kind of state we're going to be in by the time we've come to that conclusion? And can we remember also what we went through before we joined the temple, or before we came to Krishna consciousness? What brought us to this realization, this conclusion that this is the thing to do in life? It wasn't a small decision, so we should remember that. We left a lot behind, we're leaving a lot behind, we're continuing with this process, and ultimately we're leaving this world behind for a better world. And it's not just based on belief, because we may not have in this life anyway experience of various other types of oceans, planets, etc., environments. And we may not have personally seen the spiritual world. It's not like perhaps we were transported there and we've seen it all and we came back and thought, yeah, I remember it now, it's great, I'm going to go for it. But we're seeing the evidence of it there through the practices of Krishna consciousness. So we hear about Krishna, we hear Krishna's names, and magically we find ourselves departing from the shackles of material life. We shouldn't think it's some just incidental thing that we're hanging on by the skin of our teeth. Sometimes we think we don't have a taste, but the fact that we're able to leave things behind means that we are developing a taste. And then we see other devotees who are more advanced, and we see they certainly have a taste. You meet some devotees and you think they're already in the spiritual world, they're just here to give us association. You can feel that in their presence. And the philosophy is there as well. And just like the travel agent, if he'd never been to China, he may see Chinese food, Chinese people, Chinese language, see a map of China, see pictures of it. Then you'd have to be in quite a sorry state to think that it was just made up. You'd have to be pretty paranoid to think that China didn't exist. So with the spiritual world also, we're hearing about it. We're seeing people of the spiritual world. These pictures that we see in Prabhupada's books, these are windows to the spiritual world. Personally speaking, even before I could read Prabhupada's books, then my friends and I, we used to gather around the books and we'd look at the pictures, because we weren't in the state of mind that we could actually read the books. We read the words, but it didn't make any sense to us. But we looked at the pictures and it was so attractive. It certainly was like windows to the spiritual world. When I heard that term, I thought, definitely was. So the spiritual world is being presented to us. This most confidential secret is being told to us clearly. Krishna's Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, the Guru Parampara, they're showing us the most confidential knowledge. And just like we were reading in the Prabhupada Lilamrita, that this highest thing of service and separation has been given to us in Kali Yuga, who are the lowest. You know, we're hardly worthy of anything at all, but the Lord is so kind that He's showing the supreme mercy to those who are not deserving. So it's good to remember that actually I'm a product of the mercy of the Lord and the Lord's devotees. Were it not for them, if we were left to my own devices, then I wouldn't be in such a good position in life. And here we see that Hiranyakashipu is intoxicated by his power. He's very much attached to it. Although he's thinking he's the king of the universe, he's so attached. So this is not a very good position to be in. And we see that he's attached because when Prahlad Maharaj tells him, so he says, where did you get this knowledge from? After Prahlad was preaching to his father, where did you get this knowledge from? Is it from their teachers? I will have their heads removed. He's speaking like that. He says, no, I got it from same place as you. It's from God. He says, what is this God? Better still, where is he? Is he in this pillar? Then I'll kill him. But he was infuriated when Prahlad, he told him that even if you took courses in it, still you couldn't understand because you're too attached. And Hiranyakashipu was furious at being called too attached. But this is naturally he is, because it was important to him to be the biggest shot in the universe. And the fear of death was there because he wanted to conquer over it. And this is, we were reading earlier. No, sorry, it was in the third canto. I was just reading recently. That part of, in the creation, then the fear of death is also inserted into the universe. Otherwise, the living entities, and they wouldn't be able to exist. If there was no fear of death, then just like if there's no pain, then if fire didn't burn, then you would put your hand in your fire and it would be a terrible mess before you even realised it. You'd be thinking, oh, what's that smell? So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that, even if we want to be happy in this material world, we have to perform some kind of yajna, some kind of sacrifice. And in this age of Kali Yuga, the sacrifice is simple. It's Harinam Sankirtan, to give out the holy name. This Yuga Dharma is Harinamaiva Kevalam, Kalanos Chiva Gitiranyata. That in the age of Kali, there's no other way. So sometimes devotees get distracted by getting into doing fire yajnas, and fire yajnas have a place. It's not that the other methods of self-realization are completely to be ignored. We do temple worship. We do some fire yajnas when it's necessary, etc. like that. But if it replaces serving the mission of propagating the holy name, then that can be considered as serve and swerve, where we're serving, but we're swerving. So if everything has to be in relation to the Yuga Dharma, and that makes it auspicious. And therefore, for example, when Prabhupada did the yoga, he kept it very simple. And of course, we do have some elaborate things there, which are there sometimes to satisfy the people's needs. Just like when Krishna Balaram were installed in Vrindavan, Prabhupada says kirtan was sufficient, but to keep the locals happy, then we would employ some Brahmins to do some big pujas, etc. And these are also known as samskars, to make an occasion of something. And sometimes that's necessary so people can take the importance of it. They take some vow to get married or to follow their spiritual master. And they make something big of it, so that is makes a samskar, establishes it in the individual's consciousness. But there's different ways of getting married. There's different ways of taking initiation. Like sometimes the Babaji would give initiation by giving the mantra, and then throwing some dirt on the person's face. That's one form of initiation. And then Prabhupada also refers to marriage. He says that in villages, simply the boy and girl come together with the families, and the whole village is there. The boy makes some promise, I'm doing this. The girl makes some promise, I'm doing that. And that's it, simple as that. It's just everybody witnesses some promise being made. And and Prabhupada also says that for us, we're happy simply living in a mud hut in India. I'm not sure if everyone in ISKCON would be happy with that, but certainly he's talking about himself and any devotees who may be in that category. But for preaching purposes, we make nice temples. Because if we just have a mud hut, then who's going to come to that? Or if we live under a tree, under a tree in Lesmahego, then who would come to that tree? It'd have to be very sincere. Especially in this weather, so we have to have some facility to accommodate the people so that there can be some sangha, some association of devotees. So therefore, whatever auspiciousness was in the world at that time, all the jewels, gold, etc., which was in the planet, was because of the sacrifices which were being performed. And similarly, Prabhupada says that in this Kali Yuga, anything auspicious that happens is a direct result of the Sankirtan Yoga, because that's the only yoga that's been performed. Prajapati Das, Hoksha maybe remembers Prajapati Das. Do you remember Prajapati, Prabhupada disciple? American, very dramatic person. Yeah, he did recently. Yeah, his son came to visit recently, Srimad Bhagavatam. So he used to live at Chaitanya College. But I heard a very distinctive voice. I heard the morning walk, and he said, "Srila Prabhupada, in this Kali Yuga," he says, so much sinful activity going on, but by now, shouldn't there be some heavy reaction? And Prabhupada says, yes. He says, so Prabhupada, what is stopping this? Is it the Sanktan movement? He says yes. The Sanktan movement is holding back the tide of Kali Yuga. It's holding back the tide. So, on account of all the sins that's going on, I mean, there's the mechanization of slaughterhouses, the amount of abortions being performed, etc., like that, whatever else is going on in the planet. Then there's a lot of heavy reactions which are due. But the Sanktan movement is actually creating an auspiciousness. Even while this is going on, many people are giving up the consideration to kill animals. They're becoming vegetarian or vegan or ahimsa, vegetarian or whatever they want to call, whatever version of it is. But the compassion is coming in the hearts. They're considering the welfare of other living entities. And one time on Byers Road in Glasgow West End, we're doing Harinam. And this man came up to us and he says, "Thanks for coming out and chanting on the streets. It's purifying the atmosphere and we need it to keep it going." And he gave some really nice donation as well. So there are people out there who appreciate the effect of the Sanktan movement, and we also shouldn't take it for granted. And we should do our bit to serve that mission so that it can continue to go on. And this way we bring some auspiciousness to the world. The Lord moves, but if we just simply do that service, the Lord will make the moves where the living entities will be liberated. Lord Chaitanya says that to spread the holy name in every town and village, so that may be directly through chanting, or maybe through the Brihat Madanga, distributing books. And sometimes, even to make them favourable enough to hear the holy name or take a book, we have to give them prasad. So this is our trident approach. And so we're armed with these astras to resist the onslaught of Kali Yuga. But we should be careful not to think that it's us that is doing it. I remember one senior devotee challenged Maya, and it wasn't long before he was gone. So we should never think that we're above Maya. Such a thought means you're already in Maya, deep Maya. Very dangerous position to be in. So even if we're successful in our endeavours in preaching, we shouldn't think, now we're on the crest of a wave, it's all going to be plain sailing from now on. That's Maya keying you, she's queuing you up for difficulty, if we believe that. And Prabhupada says that the problem with the devotees is they're not sufficiently afraid of Maya. So fear can be used in Krishna's service too if we're afraid to do something wrong because we're a spiritual master, or we'll get a reaction, or someone else might be displeased. It's not necessarily a bad thing. So we see Hiranyakashipu wanted to be in a position of supreme authority, supreme proprietor, no fear of death, and everybody was afraid of him, and then he was considering that he was top dog, he was happy. But as we'll see later on, there was other qualities in there, such as he wasn't renounced, he was too attached, and as a result of that, he was blind, spiritually blind. But he got the mercy of the Lord because he was taking part in the Lord's pastime. So we'll just stop there if anyone's got any questions or comments.
Statistics from the animals, the developer had to 92 billion pounds.
92 billion every year. Inconceivable. Wow.
No, I was just thinking
Mm-hmm. See, by our own personal chanting, we're getting purified. By distributing the books, then people are getting the chance to take up the same process like we did. We got a book, we seen somebody chanting on the street. And I don't know if you remember the first time you got prasad. The first time I got it, it came in the post from Chaitanya College. And it was just like, I was practically looking on the postmark to see if it came from Vaikuntha because it was out of this world. It was like, even the colour of it, it was some kind of light blue sandesh. And I was thinking, what is this amazing food stuff? You open up and you get smells that you never smelt in your life. And directly from the Lord's plate.
When I finished off the shot, I went off the plate for everyone. I thought it was being left back on the table. And rather than take something, he sat down and put on the plate.
You were wondering if it was going to be enough for everybody. And we experienced that. We're just speaking with one old devotee from Krinabavan yesterday, Prabhupada Charan, and we were talking about some of the highs of the Sankirtan era at Krinabavan. And our consciousness was that Prabhupada said, if we just distribute the books, well, we have no worries. We have no financial worries. And it was the case that sometimes you just couldn't give enough books out. There was so much Lakshmi coming in, especially in the marathon. You would have, perhaps the Lakshmi would be coming in and your book scores would be like, okay, there's too much Lakshmi. I've not given out enough books. Tomorrow I need to give out a few books free just before you even start to even it up. And then by the end of the day, it would be even more so. So it just shows you when Krishna is there, then when Narayan's there, Lakshmi will follow. But if we just aim for Lakshmi itself, then that's keeping Krishna out of the picture, isn't it? And in our prayer, some people may say, the blessings of Lakshmi Devi. But as we were reading not so long ago in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the blessings of Lakshmi Devi are not just cash in the bank. That might be there. The blessings of Lakshmi Devi is basically to become a pure devotee of the Lord. Mm-hmm. Might be. And when you're back home in the spiritual world, you'll be thinking that was a blessing. So many blessings come in disguise. We don't recognize them while they're going on, but it's like they say, once you get some lesson, then most people, most of the time, they would rather have went through it and got the lesson than not have went through it and didn't get the lesson. Although they're not keen to go through it again, but... Okay, anything else? Iskon Guru Ki, Shri Prabhupada Ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Gaur Bhakta Ki.